Hi beautiful people, welcome back to my channel. My name is Dee, welcome if you're new. In today's video, I want to speak on what happened in Henan with the violent clash between the local authorities and the protesters. So what happened was there were a bunch of Henan residents finding themselves not being able to withdraw money from the local banks that they deposited their money because of the promotion of the government, and a lot of these local banks were actually endorsed by the government, and a lot of them offer pretty nice interest rate. That's why people had this sense of security and put their money back into these banks. And in China, the herd mentality is a real freaking thing. So if one person finds out something that's worth kind of talking about through word of mouth, everyone else that person knows will just do the same thing. That's why there were so many people put their money into these small local banks. And now, because a lot of these people are not wealthy, and Henan is not a wealthy province in China to begin with, so lots of these people put their life savings into these banks, and only to realize that they will never be able to get these money back, because when they went to the banks, they were told that only because, well, certain individuals like managers or executives in these banks embezzled money for personal usage and then transferred the money overseas already. So there's no way that the bank can get the money back. So basically they are not held responsible, and these residents are supposed to be the one that take full responsibilities for the loss of money. And that is just like BS, and it's just unacceptable to anybody who would be okay with their whole pension getting stolen, or their cancer treatment money getting stolen, their marriage money, their house, their down payment. So that's why more and more people in Henan have been coming out, gathering together to protest in front of these banks. However, the local banks was just colluding with the government, giving these protesters red health code forcefully. So in China, you have to get tested either every day or every other day to get the the green health code, so you can travel. And these people, even though they were not tested positive for COVID, they were still given a red health code, meaning that they can't even get out of their little neighborhood. This whole thing just started to blow up, and now even more people came out, and they just gathered all together, putting out all sorts of banners talking about, oh, this is a violation of human rights. And the local authorities even resorted to hiring mafias to crack down on these private citizens to just shut them off. And the situation just got kind of out of control, and a lot of people got hurt, and it just became super bloody, super gory. I won't get into too much details about that, because, I mean, to me, this is no longer news. None of this was surprising to me at all, because we've been seeing the same scripts being played out over and over and over again, just in different times, in different locations, in Beijing, in Hong Kong, in Shanghai, now in Henan. And you just see people having the same, people who were the direct victims of these atrocious events were just super vulnerable. They were super angry, and they were just straight up being like exploited and hurt so badly. But you also see other people who are not affected just basically just hold this apathetic attitude towards things that are happening right now, or at the time. So I'm also just starting to find myself having this like a compassion fatigue for what's happening in China now. And basically, I just cannot feel sorry for a lot of these Chinese people, especially when I looked at the pictures coming out of those protests, and I saw among the banners that they put out, they would hold up the portrait of Mao in the name of justice, because they genuinely believe that Mao is this figure for justice. He was supposedly the founder of New China, and he was supposed to be the person that brought justice and law and order into China, brought equality into China. And that's why they held up the portrait in nostalgia to referring to back to Mao's time, even though a lot of these people, they either themselves went through the Cultural Revolution or they've had direct family members that got persecuted during the Cultural Revolution or even went through the Great Famine, and they still couldn't wrap their head around what's going on in China and who was the one that's responsible for their own sufferings, for their pains and for their losses. So I also have been seeing a lot of these Henan residents shouting, we want the central government to get involved. We want the prime minister to come in, investigate, and help maintain justice for us. And that's why I cannot feel a whole lot of empathy for these people, because they don't even have the basic ability to think critically who is responsible for their financial loss and why they constantly find themselves in this type of dilemma over and over and over again. And it's beyond me when I just see people, especially people in the West who have free access to all the information in the world, still believing in communism, thinking that it'll work somehow. In China, the reason why they cannot get their money back, scams like this happen all the time. Like, just look up P2P scam. It happened in recent years, where like a bunch of middle class to upper middle class Chinese people were scammed penniless by the government. And just like this time, nobody was held responsible in that whole situation, and people's money that were just gone forever, and there's nothing they could do about it. It's because of a lack of respect for personal private property in communist countries. And well, in China, even though they claim that they obey the law, they have law and order, it doesn't work, because that laws and orders are not the foundation of that country. Maintaining the dictatorship, maintaining the ruling power of the party was the foundation of that country. That's why whatever that benefits the party will be held to the highest priority, not your private citizens' personal rights, your personal assets, your private property. And that's why communism never worked, not even with Chinese characteristics. The reason why China was able to create so many economic miracles was not because of communism with Chinese characteristics. It was because of capitalism. It was not because of what the government did to the Chinese people that made China great. It was because of what the government didn't do. It was because the government stepped back and let people do their own thing, let them trade freely, let them run their business freely, and let them just decide what's best for their own business, for their own district, for their own family. That's eventually helped lift China out of poverty. But now, because the government wants to step in again and control everything, inevitably we are facing the reality that the more government intervention there is, the more people's life will get affected negatively. And that's why it frustrates me beyond all imagination to see all these Westerners just simping for dictatorships, for communism, for socialism, even though they know it didn't work with the Soviet Union, it didn't work with Cuba, it didn't work with Vietnam, didn't work with Cambodia, didn't work with North Korea, and now it's not working in China either. But somehow or some way, they believe that it will eventually work in some Western country that they live in. And that's why it's just so disappointing. And this is not to say like capitalism is the answer to all sufferings we have. I mean, capitalism is not an ideology, it's an economic phenomenon, and it's not going to solve anything. It's just it just exists. It's there. It's a type of rule. Again, like it has an array of problems that we need to tackle, but that doesn't mean communism isn't the alternative answer. It's not. So back to China's situation, that's why I think Chinese people need to start reflecting on ourselves. what is it that we're pursuing after? The problem that China has is a lot of the Chinese people don't want freedom, don't want democracy, they don't want personal autonomy, they don't want agency for themselves. All they want is a benevolent dictator, a great 青天大老爷, a great Your Majesty, who can determine the best for them, who can distribute the most fairly fair share to them. That's so that they don't have to worry about their own life, they don't have to worry about what to do with their life, even though if it's entirely up to them, if they're taking full responsibility of their own life, they might actually make a lot out of it, and they might be actually happier. But because they were stripped away that privilege, they never know. They will never get to find out. And that's the problem. And unless we tackle the real problem here and the cultural issue here within the Chinese community, we won't see solution to these dilemmas that Chinese people are facing. Even though you strip away the CCP from the Chinese people, they will elect another party probably that replaces the CCP, the current government, and that pretty much does the same thing to the Chinese people. We've been seeing that historical cycle just repeating itself over and over on loop. So I think that's my personal observation. Some people might think it's too harsh, but again, this is a criticism towards myself as well, because I have that tendency within me as well. And I'm trying everything I can right now to face on to the problems that I have, that I see in my culture, in my upbringing, so that we can find out some solutions and move forward and become better and get out of this. We've been stuck at this stage for decades, for maybe like thousands of years, and it's time to move on, folks. So that's just my take on this whole situation. I apologize that I'm getting a little bit heated, but I hope you can find maybe some resonance from my discussion. And if you have any criticism towards my statement, my reflection, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Or if you agree, and I also welcome you to write down your thoughts in the comment as well. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.